The world and all those who love freedom and the rule of law are on pins and needles about what's going to happen to Mr. Armando Abrego Garcia, whether he's going to be left to rot by the United States Supreme Court in an El Salvadoran jail, or he's going to be brought back, repatriated to the United States to be given his due process and his Fifth Amendment rights under the U.S. Constitution, because the government has already conceded that they violated his rights because he had an order preventing his removal to El Salvador in his back pocket, given to him in 2019 by a federal judge. And now the Trump administration is telling the Supreme Court that they have no power to repatriate. And that's a lie. There's a series of cases that have now been cited by Abrego Garcia's lawyers, Quinn Emanuel. Shout out to Quinn Emanuel, not bending the knee of the Trump administration, taking on the Trump administration in their filing on behalf of him. I'm sure pro bono, for free, because it's important. And they say there's a long line of cases under precedent in which courts have been acknowledged to have the power to order that the government fix its mistake, fix its screw up, and get the person back, even from places like El Salvador. And that's the other thing that I love about this filing, which I'm going to cover here on Legal AF, on Michael Popok, is that Quinn Emanuel also cites to the case that just happened a day and a half ago, JGG, in which the Supreme Court ruled on its face that while the Trump administration can continue to use the Alien Enemies Act to deport people and send them to El Salvador, they got to do it on notice and with due process. Something sorely lacking in the Abrego Garcia matter, if you see where this is going. Now, the rest of the 250 people that are rotting in that jail in El Salvador, along with Abrego Garcia, probably don't have any ability to come back to the United States and have their due process protected, because the Supreme Court, 5-4, and you know who the 5 were, the MAGA alt-right, they said basically, if you're still here in the United States, see the federal judge that's near where you're being held in custody. But if you're not here, well, what can we say? Unless there's a new federal, United States federal judge and court opening up in El Salvador, you're SOL. That's a legal term. But Abrego Garcia is a special case, or as they say in their filing for Abrego Garcia, his lawyers at Quinn Emanuel, he's one of one. He's one person that the government has confessed in court that they made a mistake, that ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, knew about the order preventing his removal to El Salvador and did it anyway. And who is Abrego Garcia? To hear the lawyers for Donald Trump tell it, he's a confirmed member of MS-13, a notorious narco-terrorist gang in El Salvador. He's a murderer. No, he's not. He's been in this country since 2019 under an order of protection. He's checked in with his immigration officers dutifully every time, like on probation. He's a member of a union, works in Maryland, and has a child and is married to an American citizen. And if they had proven that he committed any crimes in America, why didn't they arrest him, indict him, and prosecute him? Because the record is replete with references that his family ran a successful business in El Salvador, was targeted by MS-13 in a shakedown bribery scheme. And in order to get the family to cooperate and pay money, they effectively kidnapped Abrego Garcia and made him a gang member. He got to America, got the order of protection, and then got put on the plane anyway. They picked him up in front of his 5-year-old child, ICE, and they said, sorry, your status has been revoked. Get in the van. Texas, it's a Texas two-step to El Salvador. Now, here's the part that I love, many things I love about Quinn Emanuel. I know the firm well, in their filing. They say the government on page 1 says the government can, well, let's start at the very beginning. Page 1 top. This case is one of one. It presents the extraordinary circumstances of the government conceding that it erred in removing Kilmer Armando Abrego Garcia to a foreign country for which he was not eligible for removal. Many of their quotes are from the fourth District Court of Appeal, sitting over Judge Zinnes in Maryland, who ordered him, remember how we got here, she ordered him to be returned to the United States by Monday at midnight. That didn't happen. The Trump administration went to the Fourth Circuit. The Fourth Circuit 3-0 ruled against them. They went to the Supremes, and the Supremes are trying to get to the bottom of whether they're going to require the government to expedite his return to the United States for due process reasons. In the meantime, the Supreme Court issued its ruling in the JJJ case, in which they blocked Judge Boasberg's decision to ground the planes and make a determination that the Alien Enemies Act has been violated, ruling instead that he doesn't have any jurisdiction. The whole case should be in Texas with individual writs of habeas corpus. How does that map onto this case? I'll walk you through it. So here's what they say on page 1. That he is not wanted by the government of El Salvador. He sits in a foreign prison solely at the behest of the United States as the product of a Kafkaesque mistake. The government can and does return wrongfully removed migrants as a matter of course. I mean, to hear the Trump administration tell it with all their straw man arguments, we can't get him back. It violates foreign relations. It violates foreign policy. It makes the federal judge be the president of El Salvador. And they said there's a line of cases right on point, including about El Salvador, that says that's exactly what a federal judge can do. Order the return of somebody. The district court's order instructing the government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return is routine, they say. And we go on. Page 2. Requiring the government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return is not novel, nor does it doing so empower district courts with extrajudicial jurisdiction over the United States diplomatic relations with the whole world. The district court's order does nothing more than demand the government correct its own admitted error and vindicate the interests of courts in upholding the respect due the fundamental values of human law. It's a death sentence to go to El Salvador. It's one of the most notoriously depraved places you can put somebody to rot. And he will die in El Salvador. That is the irreparable harm. They then quote from a series of cases. How novel. Cases for the United States Supreme Court. I mean, look, the United States Supreme Court in the last 3 decisions for Donald Trump have been bending over backwards to find procedural little hiccups and off-ramps and all sorts of other excuses why they need to rule for him. Oh, you don't have standing. What are you doing in this courtroom? You don't have an injury. Oh, you're a little too late. Oh, you're a little too early. Oh my God. Just say what you're doing. You're protecting Donald Trump. Here's what they say on page 9. Courts also routinely order the government to return or facilitate the return of individuals the government wrongly removed to foreign countries. I'd like to say this is the only example in the history of the United States of somebody being wrongfully sent out of the country, but it's not, even to El Salvador. They cite the case of Ramirez from the Fourth Circuit 2018, directing the government to facilitate Ramirez's return to the United States from El Salvador. Another case from the Fourth Circuit, also El Salvador, a case from 2020 in the Fourth Circuit, directing the government to return Nunez Vasquez to the United States, and over and over and over again. In fact, they quote on page 10 of their brief that the Fourth Circuit, which is where Maryland sits, ruled just 2 years ago that if a person removed to El Salvador is later awarded withholding of removal, if he later is awarded that, and he's already in El Salvador, that the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Attorney General should swiftly facilitate his return to the United States from El Salvador. In other words, that's even Abrego Garcia's case is even stronger. He had an order to prevent his removal to El Salvador. They're saying if he got to El Salvador and then a federal judge in the United States said, no, he should never go to El Salvador, get him back, a court can order him to be returned. So the government saying it's impossible for us to get it back, they're just borrowing El Salvador's jails. Does anybody really think that the United States can't direct and make a phone call and get Abrego Garcia back? The fact that they're continuing to fight it is, as Judge Thacker said in her ruling earlier yesterday in the Fourth Circuit, in this case, it's unconscionable. It shocks the conscience. And they also, as you would expect, they also, in this new brief by Quinn Emanuel on behalf of Abrego Garcia's family, they also make the argument that the ruling that the Supreme Court just made a day and a half ago, in the JJJ case actually helps Abrego Garcia. Now, a lot of the reporting was Supreme Court allows Alien Enemies Act to have deportations, doesn't address 250 people sitting in jail in El Salvador, doesn't require them to be returned. That really wasn't the issue in the case. The issue in the case was, does the Alien Enemies Act allow for review by a federal judge of actions taken under it? And if so, in what procedural posture? A writ of habeas corpus an individual prisoner can bring about his detention, confinement, and removal. So like 5,000 writs of habeas corpus cases around the country in front of all these different judges, or can one judge handle it in the District of Columbia? And and does he need due process at all? Does the Fifth Amendment apply at all? And the Supreme Court says, yes, Fifth Amendment applies. Due process applies, but it's limited to a habeas corpus petition, not the DC court. That's dismissed. Go back to Texas or wherever the Trump administration places you. So they distill from that, on behalf of Abrego Garcia, that he has, as they all do, a due process notice and due process right to on a habeas corpus petition. And they got to bring him back from El Salvador in order for him to effectuate his rights. Otherwise, what are they? They're illusory. Oh, you have them, but I'm sorry, you're in El Salvador where there's no federal court. So now we're going to see if there's 5 votes, forget procedural. Is there 5 votes now to bring Armando Abrego Garcia back to the United States? And again, not to release him. I mean, I would like to probably release him, but not to release him, just to bring him back to the United States and hold him in detention in Texas and let him get before a federal judge in our adversarial process to have his Fifth Amendment due process rights. That's all we want. That's the society we want to live in. Yes or no? We're going to know very, very soon. It may be as soon as Wednesday, probably later in the week. Full briefing is now complete. There's not going to be an oral argument, and watch for the battle as they try to count 5 on the United States Supreme Court. Is Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts going to join with the liberal wing, Sotomayor, Jackson, and Kagan? They need both of those two to run over there. We got to run the table. Or is one or both of them going to side with the hard right 4, Gorsuch, Alito, Thomas, and Kavanaugh? That's it. And we'll cover it right here on the Legal AF YouTube channel. So until my next reporting, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.